Good morning. Good morning.
morning, Service Alliance community.
Man, I got to find out what song that is. It sounds like a Brothers Osborne song. It's just got me going like,
Zach,
yeah.
Zach's the one who put that together, so you'd have to ask him.
Yep. That's a good song.
Yeah, we went through a bunch of them. It's got
Nice
a good
little
beat.
change up.
We wanted something with a decent beat.
So I've got some really good coffee this morning. This is the morning grind. We talk about coffee sometimes, but I don't know what it is. I just know it's straight from Nicaragua. We were at Encompass Day this last week, and I met a gal. Her name is Roxanne from the Appliance Repairman, and she brought ground coffee from Nicaragua with her. And Orlando, Reggie's wife, gave me a little bit to bring home. I'm telling you, it is good. It is really
You'll have
good.
to hook us up.
Yeah.
You can't do a tease like that and not hook us up. Because I drink a lot
better
of
than
coffee.
Folgers. Way better than Folgers.
It's better than Folgers. All right, today we're talking about building a team that cares about your customers.
Yes, very much so. Good morning, everybody. We got some people on here.
Yeah.
A lot of people from my office help. Yeah.
Howdy, Jason.
Good morning, Service Alliance Group. Yes, the appliance guy. Good morning.
TK's on.
Hello, Adam.
Checking up on us.
Yeah. Hey,
Morning,
okay.
Adam.
So before we get started, did you know that it is unlawful in the state of Hawaii to laugh loudly?
No way.
Yeah, you got to keep it to aloha.
Ha. Or should I say
ha?
Yeah. How low, I wonder.
Aloha.
I wonder what their gauge is for that. That's pretty good.
That's the dad joke of the week, I guess. Yeah. I've got a lot of lohas from that. So.
Yeah. All right.
Shoot.
So.
Hey. Yes. So
building a team that cares about your customers.
Yeah.
Let's open us up in prayer, and then you got a verse that you go over that ties in with this. All right.
I believe you do. Yes.
Yes. All right. Let me pray us in real quick. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this opportunity to come together to talk about team building and the community that you've given us to build teams within. And I just want to ask that you guide us and be with us today as we go through this subject and enlighten our hearts, open our hearts to our team, open our team's hearts to our leadership. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. So talking about teamwork here, we're going to go with Galatians 6, verses 2 through 6. This is the NIV. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. That's some good wisdom right there.
I thought so.
It did a lot about teamwork there in that.
Yeah.
You could really dissect that quite a bit. For sure.
So you got to be diligent in your team. And your team has to be diligent in their work for themselves and each other too.
I like it. All right. So we're talking about a team, building a team that truly cares about your customer. So let's dive into it.
This is a tough subject for me.
Really?
Honestly, it is, because as someone who cares about my customers and cares about their success and the results that I give them, I have found it hard when I have an employee that appears that they don't care as much as I do. And that's my internal struggle, right?
Yeah.
And my struggle with that was always, how do I get them to care as much as I do?
Yeah.
And it's been a process. So one of my processes is making sure that our culture, that I'm cultivating a customer-centric culture.
Yeah.
And the only way that I have found that I could successfully do that is having my mission and vision for the company aligned with that.
Yeah. 100%.
And then you have to convey that to your employees and get their buy-in on it.
Yeah.
And if the whole team isn't bought in on that vision and mission,
Mm-hmm.
then somebody in that team has to go. You have to
Having
have complete buy-in.
having that common language
Yeah.
that
I
everybody.
mean, it's the only way that that's your path to moving forward for the entire team. And when you got one person going outside of that line,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a tug of war.
Yeah.
That everybody's got their hand on a rope, like when you were a little kid in preschool or whatever, how you had to grab that rope and everybody stayed in line so
Yeah.
that you walk the same way and walk that same path. If somebody's tugging on that rope, it holds everybody back, right?
Yeah. Well, I know we've got 4 or 5 different steps to dive into today and to help you with building a team that cares. So let's talk about the first one, cultivating a customer centric culture. I think you kind of hit on it from the very get go with getting that common language and having everybody focusing with the same core focus. We've talked about core values quite a bit as well. I think the cool thing about having that customer centric culture, with everybody kind of trying to speak the same language, is that they'll start weeding out the people who are not um, thriving. Meaning, we've got a couple people in our team they're kind of our eyes and ears on the floor, right, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so if somebody's not really kind of um, matching our core values, they'll let leadership know in a way that's conducive, and that is um, a good way, not just a, hey, I'm tattling on. It's like, hey, I'm a little concerned about, this person. And the reasons is, what can we do to help them? Right. And so it's done in a very effective way, not a, I'm want to get you fired way. Right.
Right.
Um, it was always interesting for me in our electrical business, and you guys know it in the appliance world, that when you have 1, 3, 5 trucks, 1 to 3, 5 guys out there working, it seems like some days it can be really tough, and other days it could be really easy to have this customer centric culture. But I'll tell you this: it doesn't matter if you're 2 trucks or if you're 17. I think there's always going to be a little bit of a struggle to get everybody on board. There's a book, Jim Collins, called Good to Great. Got the CD
Yep. I
version
got
of
it
it.
on my
A friend of mine gave it to me years ago. 2009, 2010. He gave me this, and it was a long read. Let me tell you,
It
but
is.
it was literally about getting the right people on the bus. Once you get them on the bus, get the right people on the bus, then it's about getting them in the right seat. I mean, that's what I could tell you this 8-hour, audio session was. That's what it boils down to. Getting the right people on the bus and then getting them in the right seat. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to hire somebody who wants to drive the bus, right? You don't want to hire
Yeah.
somebody that wants to drive that bus,
So you
because
have the people
you
who
should
own the
be the
bus.
one driving. Only one person can drive the bus. There's only one
True.
steering wheel.
True. Uh, you have somebody who owns the bus though, and they help work on the bus, but maybe they don't necessarily drive the bus, so
Right,
in
exactly.
in a case of some companies that I know of that are watching, they may have somebody who is the manager, the GM, they're the owner and they're working on the business. The GM is maybe the bus driver, right? So
Hmm.
anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
So what are some
that's the
ways
only
that
way
you
you can have a fleet of buses, right?
yeah,
That's
what are
what
some
we're talking
ways
about.
What are some ways to get that customer-centric culture that you can think of, Mike?
Oh, I mean, it all comes to me. It all comes down to training, and um, when I first really got exposed to SOPs and standard operating procedures, and going through just procedural everything, we took a lot of training, and in this, it was a service business. It was in the collision industry, and I worked for the largest collision franchise in North America. And I sat down with the founder, Lara Holt, and we're talking one day, and he's like, "Do you know why we have so much focus on customers and empathy specifically?" And I'm like, "I've always wondered that because I never really bought into it. It's like some people showing empathy to some people is a real challenge for me, and
Yep.
I was young at the time, so I just didn't get it." And he says, if you don't have empathy
Mm,
for people that are coming to you to solve their problem, you will never do a good job for them.
yeah.
And I was like, well, explain that. Why does that matter? How do you figure I can't do a good job? Because I know my job, and I don't have empathy to do my job. And the way he explained it is, I can teach you things. I can't teach you to empathize with somebody
Mm,
that well. You either have it or you don't.
yeah.
And
Mm,
if you don't have an empathetic heart to listen to people, to understand their needs, to help them solve their problem, and to understand their point of view, there's nothing that you can know besides
mhm,
that's going to be effective for them.
mm,
You're you might as well be a robot, in
yeah.
other words. And that helped me understand, okay, I need to learn to be more empathetic and just actively listening and
Yeah.
dealing with how can I solve this person's problem.
Yep.
But I have to really deeply understand where they're coming from and how they perceive their problem,
Yeah.
because you can listen to somebody's problem and you're like, oh, that's no big deal, but it could be a really big deal to
It's a
them and
huge deal.
affecting their life in a different way, and they could, in a sense, be overreacting
Yeah.
to the situation. And we've seen people that's like, you can have two people with the same problem, and one will be like, oh, that's no big deal, I'll just take care of it, I'll have somebody take care of it. And then you got somebody else, it just completely shatters their world,
Yep.
and you're like, I just don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, how many times I know we got Joe and Eddie on here watching. How many times you guys went out to a customer's house and they're flipping out over their dishwasher not working, and they could easily just wash the dishes by hand, but the dishwasher is their life. That's like their saving grace. They set the
Yeah,
dishes and go. So you got to have that empathy in that moment and be like, "Oh, wow, I totally understand. I'm sorry this is happening for you. If anybody can fix it, I know I can." And help deflate that balloon with them right then. It's a perfect time. That's how you really show empathy in that moment. When you're just thinking, "Good Lord, just wash the dishes."
right. Exactly. It's not like your fridge went out when,
Yeah.
all your food's going to spoil. It's a dishwasher. They used
Yeah.
to not exist.
And it's the same way on the phones, when they call in, you want somebody who's not surly and just a pain in the rear. You want somebody that has empathy and is going to answer, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear you're having that issues. Let me get somebody out there to take care of that for you." Right. And to calm them and to help them deflate that balloon. You definitely don't want, okay, I know you could just wash the dishes, but let me get somebody out there. Whatever.
Exactly. So how do you look for somebody and hire, like, a person who's got some empathetic skills?
Yeah. So from a technician standpoint, I will tell you from personal experience, the interviews, one-on-one, face-to-face interviews, you could tell a lot from some people. And we used to have it where, I mean, I've tried all kinds of different interviews where I have the one-on-one, I have the big team interviews where you bring everybody in at the same time, and you can easily see how well they in it um, communicate and react with other people in a room when you have the big hiring events. That's one good way you can really see how people react. The one-on-one interviews, I mean, are they looking you in the face? Are they, oh yeah, I get that. Are they? That's the communication. The nonverbal communications are huge when
Mhm.
being able to see about empathy. Are they just constantly looking at their phone, looking away, like, yeah, I got other things to do. Let me just fix the problem, right? There's those telltale signs, right? um, when it comes to that. Disc, we were talking a little bit beforehand. We do disc assessments for everybody. It's part of our application process that's already on our website. So when you go to fill an application, there's a disc assessment that you do. So disc assessment basically is just a way that we can tell how a person is going to work with a team or how they communicate, how they are productive in the workplace. So, if you don't know much about DISC, I'm a DISC consultant, instructor, and can help with that. It's really cool. I have a very inexpensive DISC assessment. I have a really expensive DISC assessment, and you can tell a lot from either one of them. But disc assessments, the job profiling assessments. There's tons of different ones out there. We just specifically went with disc because I like John Maxwell, and we went that way. So
Well, yeah, I mean, disc assessments are really key.
yeah.
And if you're not aware of what a disc assessment is, it's a personality profile. And the DISC each stand for a specific personality type.
Hmm.
And you can have very dominating types, very passive types, very, the type of person that just needs instruction and then they'll follow those instructions, real passive types. So you can identify what type of person that you're hiring based on those profiling
Hmm.
questions. And it's very easy and it's very eye opening. When I took it, I was like, I already knew that I was like a high D. I knew.
Yeah.
I had taken a bunch of variations of it before, so I already knew the outcome. But when I took the one specifically from Maxwell Leadership, I was blown away at how detailed that thing was, and I
Yeah.
was like, wow, this really goes deep, and I can see a lot more here and understand my personality type and my employees' personality types that I put through it a lot better.
Saul asked, "What personality am I?" Um, I am an IS as well. So we could really get into a whole nother episode about disc because we really like it. I'll tell you this: when people are hired on and they get their own cubicle here, we actually put their name and their disc profile on their cubicle. So when you walk up, you see their name and you see their disc profile. So as part of our training is to learn about disc, and so that way you can interact with other team members. So as I walk up to Heather's desk and I see that she's a high S, I know how to talk with her. Shayna is a high D, so even though we've been married for 26 years, I still have issues communicating with her. Even though I know her disc, right? That's a husband wife thing. But um, so for me, I'll tell you this: good sales people are typically a high IS um, or a high SI. So good people with skills on the phones are typically very high S's. So there's a whole nother um, podcast we could do about disc profiling and really understanding. I did a teaching on that. I don't know if I ever posted it to our YouTube channel, but I tell you what I'm going to do. I know I've got it on there. If I don't have it recorded, I'm going to put that on our YouTube channel again, if it's not already on there, and I'll share that to the Service Alliance group so we can kind of get a better understanding of what disc is. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think disc is really key when it comes to hiring and just understanding yourself as a
yeah.
as a business owner.
All
You
right.
know,
So
go ahead.
we've talked. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all right.
Cultivating a customer-centric culture, hiring for empathy and customer service skills. That's number 2. Effective communication and feedback loops. So this is very important. Um, providing constructive feedback. How are ways that you can do this in your own business? For us, uh, Tabitha does one-on-ones with our team members, and so that's where she sits down one-on-one with every single team member, and it's usually a short 5 to 15 minute. Hey, how you doing? It's a check-in, right? And then giving them constructive feedback. Here's what's going well. Here's what you need to work on, right? So that's one way in your own business is as you see, maybe do a weekly check-in with each of your team members. Hey, I noticed that you did this really well with Mrs. Jones the other day. Um, and then give them positive feedback and then give them what they could possibly work on if there is anything for the future. I saw you struggled a little bit with the pricing aspect. What can I do to help you out with that? Not a you need to dive into it. It's what can I do as your leader to help you with that, right? Yesterday morning, I try to several times a week walk throughout the floor that we call the call center floor. Don't say center call center, Deshana, but walked out on the floor. And I checked in with my leadership team, hey Heather and Kayla. I'm like, hey, how's it going? I know it's Monday. Anything I can help you out with, right? And I think it kind of floored Heather and Kayla both because it's like, oh well, thank you for asking. I don't think there's really anything that I need right now. But as a business owner, it's my job to be, hey, everything going okay? Anything I can help, even if it's something I can't actually do myself. I feel it's part of my job to who's the person that can help them with that, right? Or in Kayla's aspect, HR and training. What does she need help with that can improve the training aspect? We have a total of 2 weeks, 14 days of training before somebody actually moves onto the floor to really start taking calls or take leads. So in that 14 days, there's a lot that can be done. So we've actually made different improvements just based on feedback that I've gotten from Kayla. So it's pretty important to get
Yeah.
feedback and then actually do something about it, right?
As business owners, yeah, our job is to provide the tools and all the tools that employee needs to be successful.
Hmm.
And that employee may not even know all the tools that they need.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the feedback loop where you're asking for feedback in return, there could be a disconnect there where the employee doesn't understand what that feedback should be because maybe they don't know what they need.
Mm.
And that's where that communication and
Yep.
you have to prompt them and ask them the right questions so that it gets them to give you the correct answers.
Yep.
So you need to find out what their struggles are and then start asking a lot of questions. And make sure everything's encouraging.
Yep.
Identify those those holes and those missing things that you can provide that they don't even know that they're missing, and say, if I gave you this, would that help you? Could it help you? Do you
Hmm.
see that you could use this in a way? And let it be their decision, right? Because you want the employee to take ownership of it, which means it has to be their decision to
Yeah.
accept what you're offering them. And that comes to our next point, empowering team members to make decisions.
Yep.
When you empower your employees to make decisions on their own,
Hmm.
they will own things more than if you just assign them a task or assign them a new system.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest ones that I ever got as a electrician and owner was discounts, right? So a technician, he'll get that, wow, that's really expensive, right? Objection from a customer. And then it's like, okay, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I give them a discount? Do I not get them? And then the customer asks, do you guys have any discounts? So one of the things that you can do in training ahead of time is to make sure to establish what discounts are allowed you can do on the spot, right? So for us, it was veterans, senior citizens, teachers, or any fire medical professionals, 5% discount, period, right? So if that objection came up, or hey, do you guys offer any discounts? Oh yeah, you military? Okay, 5% discount right off the bat, right? Or coupons, right? We got that a lot with, oh, can I stack this coupon up with that discount? I'm sorry, ma'am, it's one or the other, right? I can't double up on coupons. So those are things that you can get ahead of the game, um, that help them to make that decision. And if it's anything above that, they know, well, anything above this, I really need to get authorization from my supervisor, right, or manager, or whatever you want to call yourself. So in the case of that objection, right? Wow, that's really expensive. Well, let me see what I can do for you, right? We've getting all the discounts out, and then I would make sure that you have that. Well, what's the price that you're looking for? Question. If this is still too much, I've tried helping you out here on this discount or this coupon. What's the price you're trying to get to make this work? And let me see if I can help get that, or help make that happen. And so the technician is then seen as the hero and not just the opposition in that case. Well, let me call up the supervisor. So he calls up the supervisor, whatever it may be. And if it's you and you're the guy in the truck, call your voicemail.
Right.
Mrs. Jones, I'm going to see what I can do. I'm going to fight for you, right? And or call your supplier. Hey, Reggie, this price on this part is just a little bit too expensive. Is there anything you can do to help me out with that? Right? Do whatever you can to be the hero. Don't go overboard with it. But if you're right there and you're this close, taking an extra 5, $10 off to get it there, I mean, maybe that makes or breaks it. I don't know. But how do you establish yourself as the hero, and how do you empower your team members in that aspect with the simple price objection? And you could go on and on about that. It's a whole nother podcast with objection
Yeah.
handling. That's one of my
Well,
favorites
you
too.
gotta somebody explained that to me once as a sheep in a pasture
Mm,
that pasture has a fence around it, and everything inside that fence, those are your parameters, those are your
mhm.
limits, that's your system. And if one of those sheep gets out of that pasture, just because you have that fence doesn't mean that you can't go outside that fence
Yeah,
to recapture that sheep that got out. You
yeah,
know, it's the exception, not the rule.
yeah,
But it doesn't mean that you can't go outside that fence and make a decision on your own. I'm
hmm,
going to go out and do this because I know that I can bring this back, and save the sale, or save the job, or save the customer's
yeah,
attitude towards us, or whatever it may be.
yeah,
There's a million different situations you could be in, but you need to understand there are exceptions to the rule,
yeah.
but that's what it is. It's an exception,
And you got
not
to
the
be
rule.
encouraging about it too. I know, encourage initiative and reward employees for that exceptional customer care. If they get a Google review, praise them for it, right? And even publicly, if you do lives or whatever, hey, this is Josh here. He was out at Mrs. Jones's house the other day. He got a 5-star review from Mrs. Jones for doing this, this, and this. Great job, man. Got anything to say about that call or whatever it may be? Um, at our quarterly meetings, the last quarterly meeting, um, one of our leadership team took initiative on something, and so we in front of the entire team, we were encouraging her about that, and we had a little joke about putting her Tabitha pants on, and took care of the issue. Tabitha's over here chuckling. I see her. So she put her Tabitha pants on, and she made the decision, and it was a positive, right, reinforcement for what she did was good, right? So yeah.
Hmm.
So when you hear put your Tabitha pants on, that's usually a good thing around here.
So how do you figure out how to do that continuous improvement of customer feedback, and how do
Yeah.
you integrate it? I mean, we've got Google reviews is a
Hmm.
simple one, but honestly, is that enough?
Yeah.
One thing that you can do that I like to do is occasionally take my entire customer list, send them a mass email, simply asking them, "How are you?
Yeah.
How are you feeling? How are you feeling about the relationship with us? Are we doing a good job for you? We haven't
Right.
heard from you in a long time. You
Yeah.
know, is there a reason why we haven't heard from you in a long time? And just having some of those touch points, it puts you in their face, and
Yeah.
it's brand recognition. Maybe you got a customer list that you need to re-engage. Customer re-engagement is huge because they may have forgotten about you. And then
Yeah.
they may have an issue that they're not really even thinking about you, but they're thinking about that issue, but they just haven't taken action on it. And here you are making a touch point with them, and now you're forefront in their mind. You're the
Yeah.
first person that they're going to call when they're ready to call.
Yeah.
And a lot of us forget about that. It goes, it's a little bit of a marketing thing, but you also get feedback through that at the same time. And I think it's really important to just simply ask
Yeah.
empathetically, hey, is there anything we can do for you?
Yeah.
You know,
Both with your
so
customers and your team. You know, getting that feedback from your team is pretty important too. They're the boots out there. Another thing that popped in my head when we were talking about customer feedback and improvement. So during the May 8th, we had a May 8th storm back in 2009 here. It was a derecho. We've seen all the winds going through. I think it was South Carolina. They're calling it a derecho, not a tornado. We had one of those come through our area, and it devastated our area. Trees down, homes collapsed, cars, destroyed, stuff like that. And I remember one of the first things that I did as a business owner, I checked with my team, but then I checked in with some customers that I knew that I could get to, some elderly ones, because we were without power for, gosh, in some cases, some of our areas without power for a week and a half. But within the first couple hours of checking on, us, then I went and checked on 3 or 4 elderly people that I knew that were within my driving distance at that point. I mean, it took me an hour and a half just to get 6 miles from my office to my house at that point. Not even 6 miles, like 4 miles, an hour and a half. That's how bad it was. Um, Not like if you lived in Atlanta, it takes you, 4 hours to go, 4 miles, especially rush hour on 285. I learned that one the hard way this past weekend. So,
yep.
and I got a lot of great feedback from just going to those customers' houses and checking in with them. Hey, I was in the neighborhood. I want to just come check in on you. What can I do to help you out? And a couple of them was like, well, I didn't prepare for this. I might need some food. Okay, let me see what I can get to you, and I'll be back. And one of them, I brought back some milk in an ice cooler thing, so they had it cold for a couple days. Because some of them, they have that medication, right? So not just thinking about this, but thinking about outside of the box during even an emergency type of situation. But um, yeah, collecting, analyzing data. You hit it on the head. Google reviews, checking in with your clients. I love the email thing. We communicate a lot through Slack, so there's a lot of communication with our owners throughout the week. But yeah, that's good. Good stuff.
Yeah, but
I
even
guess.
even even people that are no longer your customer, that,
Hmm.
like I said, that you haven't dealt with in a long time, it's good to re-engage those people.
Yeah.
Because things change in people's lives. If maybe they weren't happy with you at one point,
Yeah.
but maybe they're willing to reconsider and give you another chance
Yeah.
because you reached out, and maybe the way you reached out, it maybe it's good to have somebody pick up the phone and just start calling people,
Well, Mike,
and
is
make it personal.
is your business the same today as it was 5 years ago?
Absolutely not.
Is your business the same today as it was a year ago or 2 years ago? No. We're
My
always
family's different.
yeah, we're
Everything's different.
as business owners, we're always constantly striving to improve our services to our customers. And I know that firsthand. Over this past weekend, I had a vendor partner mention something. He goes, it was kind of odd. I was talking to this client, and he said that he didn't really have a good experience with you guys. And he goes, I know you guys, and I know the kind of clientele that you have, and I know that you strive for this. So I just thought I would reach out to you and let you know about that. It's like, great. I appreciate it. So we were talking about it post hand. I had Tabitha write it on the wall so we could talk about it in our leadership meeting today. Because even though they're not a client now, 2 years ago when they were, right, we are completely different now. We've put a lot of things in place to improve our business. Same thing with my electrical business. I know the same thing with EJ and all these guys in here that are watching, that their business is not the same as what it was 6 months, a year ago. Shoot, EJ and Gasper alone, in talking with them, they've made huge strides in their business in the past few months. So, yeah,
Well,
good
your
stuff.
business shouldn't be the same. And if it
No,
is, there's something wrong, right?
yeah,
We should always be improving.
no. Well, I think this has
So,
been pretty good. We've hammered in. Okay, so recapping here, building a team that cares about your customers. One, cultivate a customer centric culture. Two, hiring for empathy and customer service skills. Three, effective communication and feedback loops. Four, empowering team members to make decisions. And then five, continuous improvement and customer feedback integration. I think this is a good topic. And
this was a real good topic.
we got some
It was a
guys,
much needed topic.
guys and gals watching that agree, it looks like. So
Yeah.
I like Joe's comment. Salute to all those who wash dishes by hand. Yes.
Yes. That was a good one. I saw that. And I was like, we kind of blew right by that pretty quick and then didn't put it
Yeah.
up quick enough. So
Hey, before we take off, go check out My Office Helps YouTube page and check out the podcast. I've been doing more podcasts and lives again, and I've had some really good guests lately. I had Jesse and Sean from Vulcan Lock Ring. If you're familiar with Vulcan Lock Ring, it's a great tool to help you. Um, I've got Suparba from Service Works coming up. I had next Wednesday. I've got Roxanne from the Appliance Repairman. She's going to be on there. That's a really cool business. So you have to check it out. But yeah, come check us out on YouTube. My Office Help on YouTube.
our first roundtable talking, and it's going to be a small recap of our mastermind we did this past Saturday with our all access members.
That's cool.
And it'll be a good little topic to get in and everything. Obviously, we go really deep in our all access group masterminds. So if you're really wanting to get in with some really good guys and gals in that, sign up for the all access plan. It's servicealliancegroup.com,
Sweet.
and we'll get you going. All right, everybody. Have a great
All right.
day. We'll
Have
see
a
you
good
next
one.
week.